Hi everyone, this is Emanuele. I'm going to be presenting on Permane Brothers. That's where I have actually worked for 4 years. I started as a hostess, I became a server, and recently in the past year I became a bartender. So I've worked my way up through the front of the house pretty quickly. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive into my paper and tell you a little bit about everything. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Permane Brothers is a restaurant that sells sandwiches. On these sandwiches comes French fries, coleslaw, and tomatoes on fresh Italian bread. It was actually developed or founded in 1933 by a man named Joe Permane, and he actually stood at a cart in downtown Pittsburgh in the Strip District selling sandwiches to truckers, where he began the legacy of the Pittsburgher. So what comes on that Pittsburgher again is coleslaw, fries, and tomatoes. It's definitely a one-of-a-kind sandwich, and the difference is that you can pick the different kinds of meats that you want to come on it, whether it be ham, pastrami, black Angus. We have all kinds of different things, so it's definitely whatever your favorite is. So with that being said, Permane's now has about 17 locations, and they're continuing to grow throughout Pennsylvania, Ohio, and they even have stores in Florida. So the one I'm going to be specifically talking about is the Moon Township location, which was transformed into from a Denny's 9 years ago. We see a high turnover rate. That's really normal in the restaurant industry with employees coming and going, but we do have a select handful of people who were originally there and opened the store. So the organizational structure is a little bit unique. Permane's labels everybody with a different term than general manager or assistant manager or anything like that. The general manager is actually the head coach. His managers along his side are coaches, the bartenders, servers, hosts, cooks, preps, of all that nature are considered players. The people who come to the restaurant to experience Permane's are fans, and for that it's easy to see that Permane's looks at the entire Permane experience as a game, and it is the player's job to show the fans a win. So we do everything we can to make the fans have a great experience. So with that being said, the technology and communication that we use a lot in Permane's actually is the most efficient is cell phones and text messages. So there's different group texts that circle around in Permane's depending on what group you're part of. So bartenders have a group text message where they switch shifts and whatnot, and so do servers. I'm sure hostesses do and whatnot, but I'm only part of the servers and the bartenders group text messages. The social behavior is very similar to the functionalist style. So what I mean by that is that select handful of people that I mentioned earlier, those are the ones who are showing the ways of Permane's to the new employees, as well as allowing the new employees to have the creativity to put their own spin on things. So actually, when I was training 4 years ago, I went around with 3 different servers and followed them and got to see how they presented themselves to tables and told the people who've never been to Permane's about the sandwiches. So that's a big staple as well. Permane's, we always want to ask our tables or our customers, have you ever been to Permane's before? And if they say yeah, then we just say welcome back and ask them what they'd like to drink. If they haven't, then that's when we dive in and tell them about the sandwiches. So everybody has their own spiel, and that is where the creativity comes. That is where you can put your own spin on things and recommend your favorite and just kind of tell the table about the restaurant and what's good. So moving on. To cultural objects. So this is kind of fun. I chose to do one audible, visible, and tangible cultural object just to kind of like get across the board. So one of the tangible objects is an apron. What I mean by that is the aprons that we wear around our waists. So The only position that wears an apron are servers. So if you see somebody wearing that, they can only be a server. Hostesses, bartenders, managers, cooks, they don't have those. So it's very distinctive in the fact that it tells a story as well as defines that person's position as having that tangible article worn with their uniform. Moving on, it's a sports bar. So people come there to watch the Penguins, the Steelers, the Pirates, even college game day. So they want to hear the games. So it's very big responsibility for the managers to switch off from music to the broadcasts of the games. That way that the fans can be cheering and chanting and yelling at the referees and umpires for making bad calls and whatnot. So that's the audible cultural object that I thought of. I think it really defines what a sports bar is, and especially Permanis with all the Pittsburgh teams and gear that we have throughout. My last example that I use for a cultural object is the actual sandwich itself that we sell. So say you have new customers sitting at a table and you're just greeting them, and the food runner comes out and has, 3 or 4 sandwiches in their hands, going to the table right next to the new guests. They all see that sandwich and they gawk at it, and they're, oh, how do I get that? Is that what I'm ordering? Which one should I get? So that's a big cultural object visually, because you see you see the Italian bread, you see the meat, the coleslaw, the fries, and the sandwich is big. So, naturally it catches eyes, and people are always wondering what it is. So that's exactly the perfect visual cultural object that I could think of. So moving on to the culture in different terms, I would say the implicit culture that Permanis has is all about the Pittsburgher. That's the original sandwich of Permanis. And so in the menu, it's actually listed as the number 2 bestseller. A question that we always get from those who've never been to the restaurant before are, if this is the number 2 bestseller, what's the number 1 sandwich? And everybody always laughs and says, icy light beer. And people look at you like, what? They're just confused, and they laugh out of confusion because they expect that it's implied that the bestseller is going to be a sandwich. But in fact, it's actually talking about the overall restaurant, and the Pittsburgher is the number 2 because we sell more beer than we sell sandwiches. So that's a little bit funny, but it's an implied assumption that the culture has of Permanis. So adding to that, I would say the expressive culture goes back to the cultural object of sound. So it's loud, people are yelling, they're cheering on their teams, it's a casual environment, people want to sit on bar stools, drink beer, eat pizza, just be able to be surrounded by other fans or even opponents, because that makes it interesting as well, in that environment. So the expressive culture is just sports bar. It's the overall atmosphere to really be a part of. You don't understand it unless you're ever really experience it. So that's definitely, I would say, the expressive culture. And symbolic, it goes to the French fries. Permanis, Pittsburgh, we put French fries on everything. That is definitely what defines us from other places in our nation, I would say. If you go as big as nation. So not only do we put French fries on sandwiches, but we put them on salads. I've had people ask me if we put them on our desserts, just as jokes. But it's that real, and how almost famous Permanis is for their French fries, the quality of their fries. So I would say the symbolic is when you see fresh cut French fries, that's for Permanis thing. So when we look at the identities of Permanis, collectively and through the subcultures, I say they're pretty equal, believe it or not. So Permanis as an organization is looking for their fans to have the best experience possible. Subcultures, such as bartenders and servers, are also looking at their fans to have great experience with awesome service, because the better the service, assume better tips. So if you give poor service, you might get a poor tip. So the better you are, the more money you could possibly make. So with that being said, Permanis also values the profit that they bring in. So with Permanis prices being so cheap and reasonable, they really try to upsell different things. It doesn't even matter if it's 50 cents or a dollar. We constantly are trying to have people put on eggs on their sandwiches or add extra toppings to their pizza. Even start with an appetizer and with dessert. That's always an upselling approach that we have to not only make our checks higher to get bigger tips, but to sell more for the restaurant to be more profitable. So those are definitely the goals and values as well that we have. So the collective identity is definitely that this is Permanis. So what I mean by that is we're not a fancy restaurant, and when somebody asks for plates and silverware to share their appetizer or put a slice of pizza on or whatnot, and you bring over paper plates and plastic silverware, they kind of look at you like, "What is this?" And we always say, "Well, this is Permanis. What do you expect?" You know, if you want to get some fancy place setting, then you could go to Bravo down the street, but that's not what Permanis is, and collectively we have that mindset of being a low maintenance, casual, fun organization overall. And when you look at the subcultures here, it's very distinctive. You're either a hostess, a server, a bartender, a cook in that shift. Now, people do have cross functionalities where, you know, I'm a server and a bartender and I can host if I need to, and I can even food run if I need to. But I actually belong to the subcultures of bartending and serving. So it's a little tough sometimes because there can be a little cattiness going on because bartenders are usually generally busier than the servers. So and at Permanis, we have to make our own salads, make our own desserts, different things like that. So bartenders don't have time to leave the bar to go do those tasks for their guests, so they always ask either a manager or a server. The trade-off for that is that the servers don't tip out the bartenders. Sometimes this creates conflict because the servers might be really busy themselves. So to stop them in whatever they're doing and what their mindset is to do something for you is sometimes pretty frustrating and can create tension between the subcultures. But those are definitely the overall subcultures that we have. So I already talked about the values and goals and how they don't differ very much. The communication that is utilized, as I said before, is definitely cell phones and group messages. That is the most efficient way to make sure that messages are reached across the board and translated to everybody, whether it's switching shifts or looking at promotions, new regulations that we have, different things like that. That is definitely the best way to cross the whole organization with updates. So we also use this to resolve issues. So say that this person said something mean about this person. As goofy as that is, we use text messages to arrange a meeting, and then we come in and we talk it out, resolve the issue, whatever it might have been. If it's between employees or even with a guest, you need to learn your mistakes and grow from them. So we use technology through group messages to arrange that as well. So that is my first 3 parts of my organization. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to your feedback. Thanks.